hello. It is the MMG squad. First, one of your co-hosts is the Infinite, aka Lance. Hello, what is good? What is going on? Next to me is my man Dan, aka the co-host of the Money Match Gaming Talk Show. Dan, say hello.
What's up, everybody? It's me, Dan, the co-host of the Money Match Gaming Talk Show, where we talk about all stuff related to video game culture, anything around like the culture of just kind of like nerd culture, like fucking talk about movies, talk about music. Sometimes we talk about shows. It's all a great time, and I'm glad that you are here joining us for this another episode of the Money Match Gaming Podcast where today we're going to be talking about kind of the gaming industry as a whole. This is like a blanket topic discussion where you, the listeners, are welcome to join in and give us your own opinions. Talk to us. How do you feel about the things we're talking about? Do you agree? Do you disagree? And yeah, just like any other conversation. Thanks again for joining us, and let's get started. Lance, you want to
Sure,
start us up?
I'll lead the way. So this was definitely a conversation that I wanted to have with my friend Dan over here. What's been going on is I've been a lot more active in a lot of gaming scenes. Whether that be through YouTube videos, whether that be consuming people's content and stuff like that. Because generally, I'm a pretty laid back guy. I kind of do my own thing, and like with more exposure and doing the podcast and reviewing a lot more stuff and getting more detail, I realized that there's kind of like a stigma in the community lately. And it just kind of makes me want to have this small conversation about, like, you know, the gaming industry as a whole. And so, as I wrote here, I just wanted to have an open conversation in general thoughts and feelings about the gaming industry from the casual's point of view, or how I see the casual's point of view. There seems to be a lot happening in culture from business aspect and then from the consumer's aspect, and I gotta go into that a little bit. What up, Juju B? It's been a while. I'm glad you came out to have this conversation with us.
Hey,
We'll go
welcome.
ahead and get started. So, the first thing I want to go into is I want to talk about all the games that are doing it right. You know, um, shoot us off. What do you
Uh,
like, man?
I mean, games that I would say, Fortnite is doing it right for the most part. Uh, I mean, they're just like always in the press, usually for good reasons. I mean, the media kind of overuses them sometimes, but I think Fortnite is doing a good job of connecting with the player base and giving the players the product that they want. So I think they're a company that's really doing it right. Uh, Also, Capcom with Monster Hunter World. I think that game is being run really well right now, and I hope that they continue to run it with like they've been coming out with a lot of updates and just like general like DLC quests essentially, where you could do these side quests and obtain things such as like you can skin your character as Ryu or Sakura from the Street Fighter games, or Aloy from Horizon if you have it for the PS4 and stuff like that. Also, they had a Dante thing where you could get like actual gear that made your character look kind of like Dante, and you could get his sword. I thought that was really cool. But those, I think, are two examples of games that are handling the communities and the aspects of their game well right now, in my personal opinion. Those are two of probably the top ones. What about you?
I mean, out of the group, I would say I'm definitely more of the skeptic, even though I view myself as a very positive individual. Um, I would agree with you wholeheartedly. Fortnite's probably the biggest one. Um, and really, I think they're the only one that is doing it like 100% wholly. Like, you can't really complain about them, right. Everyone else, kind of, you can nitpick, you can kind of pull things apart, and it still doesn't kind of meet the standards that I'm looking for. But Fortnite definitely is a community that I feel like is actually doing it what it needs to. Every streamer that I listen to, they just
Mm-hmm.
talk about how great the game is, how they're listening to us, how they're adding things that they listen to. If you listen to any of the big streamers, they'll talk about how, yeah, I had this idea, and Epic was clearly in my stream, and they took that idea.
Mm-hmm.
Like the
Yeah, I mean, a
vending
lot of the
machines.
posts that you see, like for example, on the subreddit, you'll eventually see make their way into the game. For example, I saw a post about a week ago that said, "Oh man, you know it would be great if we had some epic or legendary burst rifle assault rifles." Well, as of I think tomorrow or something like that, there will be epic and legendary burst assault rifles in the game. So like right there, they're on it too. Like it's not a long turnaround.
Right, because it's easy, and I think I'm gonna allude to it now, but what I want to bring up is like everyone knows that these companies can do these things, and
Mm-hmm.
Epic like clearly is showing like, hey, it is easy, and we are giving you what you want, and everyone's happy in that community. Like anytime anybody's talking about the community and the people who are being made by the game itself, so that'd be streamers or anything like that, like they're all happy. They're all like, man,
Mm-hmm.
this is amazing. The only thing they have to say is positive things about the game, and so like it's kind of like you know, they're clearly doing it right. So
Mm-hmm.
real quick, Juju asks, what do you think about people, especially YouTube/streamers, who go from Overwatch to Fortnite? Do you think Overwatch is dead, or it's just getting better to the
Um,
people who've been playing a lot?
I was actually before he said that, I was going to bring up the same thing with Rocket League because that's another trend I've noticed. A lot of the Rocket League YouTubers I watch now make also Fortnite content, or actually some of them even more so Fortnite content now. I think there's a mix. I think it's not necessarily that Overwatch or Rocket League are dead games. I think they're still very popular with a big section of their audience, but I think that Fortnite has kind of taken the world by storm and like really has a grapple hold on the streaming market now, where if you want your videos to be viewed, that's what, like, the people who are viewing the most videos on YouTube are looking for Fortnite videos. Like I was just on my I was setting up a video on YouTube for my dad downstairs, and like even with everything else that's going on in the world, there was still like multiple Fortnite like top searches or Fortnite things. So definitely, I think that's why they're heading towards the Fortnite content, because there's money to be made there, and you got to understand that a lot of these streamers, it's a business for them. Like this is their livelihood, and if you're gonna make content, you got to make what gets the most views. Sometimes it's not necessarily what you want, and there are a lot of streamers who still stick with Overwatch or still stick with with Rocket League and stuff like that. But you got to mix it up sometimes, and I understand. At the same time, I wish they continued to just do more content of the, like, I don't like watching Fortnite streams so much, but I do like watching Overwatch and Rocket League streams more. But I mean, it is what it is. I'm not gonna tell them, I'm not gonna knock their hustle. But I think also, um, Overwatch is not as fresh as it used to be. Oh, it's about to be 2 years old in a week here. Uh, it's not Rocket League's about to be 3 or 4 years old in a couple weeks as well. Like these games have been around for a while. Fortnite is to steal from Men in Black One, old busted new hotness. Fortnite's the new hotness right now. Uh, to the point where like there's baseball players that are like they had to sit out games because they fucking played Fortnite all night and got carpal tunnel and shit like that. Like I don't understand that. If you're a baseball player, I think you should have better wrist stability, but that's beyond me. But yeah, I think that's what it is, man. Fortnite is just the new hotness, so that's why you see it more commonly. But I do think that like when like if Overwatch does something like major to freshen up their game, it'll be like that it'll rise from the ashes. That's a game that I see still gonna have continued success for a long time. But right now, Fortnite is that hotness. And I mean, you can even look at it like this: like you don't even see as many Player Unknown's Battleground stream anymore. As soon as Fortnite started raising, like it's just that's what it is. That's if you want the views, that's where you got to go.
So what I actually think it is, and this is the overarching problem with the gaming industry in general, is that especially AAA, because I'm like, this is more like focused at AAA games, is they recycle games. And the two games that we're talking about, the two games that we keep saying are doing it right, which would be Overwatch and Fortnite, are evolutions of their game types. Period. You know, they're just flat out evolutions. They have mechanics that work. They have things that people like and enjoy. And in these aspects, those are the two games that did it. All the other ones that have surfaced and kind of been around for a little while, just they're the same mold. They're the same recycled game. And ultimately, I think that's the true issue of the gaming market as a whole. Is all they're doing is recycling games. They're creating the basic framework and then they're
Mhm.
putting new skins on it. And that's generally every game. It feels like
To-
no game industry whatsoever is trying to push the envelope. And both of
but
those games push those envelopes.
well, here's the thing though. Fortnite at heart is just a recycling of PlayerUnknown's Battleground. It's just that they have continued to add their own appeal to it. So really, it is a recycled game. It is recycled PlayerUnknown's Battleground. That came first, and Fortnite runs off the same engine. But Fortnite put their own spin on it that now change the way it all works. If you understand, you like catch what I'm going
Well,
for.
sure. Battle
And
royales is a
same with Overwatch. Overwatch is just fucking Team Fortress 2, but different with more.
right. There's like but each one of those games that you're mentioning are ultimately an evolution. So yes, it does resemble PUBG, but so does H1Z1 because I think that came first. I
Mm-hmm.
think that was the first one. And they just didn't fix the issues fast enough. PUBG's the same way. PUBG would not be in any kind of issues if they sped up the bug fixes and the new maps and the new guns and adjustments to all the different things that people were complaining about since it started. They were just too slow.
Yeah,
Fortnite
I
was
mean
like,
that's the issue. Yeah, Fortnite is fixing things with the quickness, whereas PUBG is just Slowby McSlow Town and don't like doing anything to improve their game. So it just runs like crap unless you have like the Xbox One X and a 4K TV or something stupid like that.
right. So it's like, like again, this is kind of what we're falling into. And I think the sourness comes from these being AAA titles. Like PUBG has no excuse.
Also, a
Take
good point that Jujubee brings up is that the game is free. Fortnite specifically is a free to play game that everyone has access to, no matter what you play on. You can play this dang game on the phone.
Right. It's like extremely cross-platform, which people have been
Mm-hmm.
asking for forever. And I understand, and like we're gonna get into it because business is definitely one of the aspects that I want to mention.
Mm-hmm.
But like everyone wants cross-play. We do.
Yep.
We've always wanted to play with the controllers that we like, with the consoles that we like and stuff. And I don't mind, console exclusives, PC exclusives, or any of those other things. Although I would never consider something a PC exclusive.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of like, oh, we designed it for the PC, whatever. But like, like that aspect and stuff like that. But really, again, I have to go back to the simple fact that these games are evolutions. They've evolved the genre in some way, shape, or fashion, and they did it better than the other people around them. And that's kind of why we're here. All those other games, to answer the second part of your game or question is they're not dead. Especially
Mm-hmm.
Overwatch. Overwatch is
Yeah.
especially not dead. They're just slower.
Mm-hmm.
Overwatch would still be ahead of the curve if number one, they had reasonable solutions to a lot of the issues that people have in the community. Like me, my biggest gripe is competitive. Like they just don't fix it. They don't introduce all the necessary elements to make it as
I
competitive as it could possibly be.
see. I think they do try, and they do come out with like constant balances and updates to try and meet that. It's just that it's hard to really. The difference between balancing something in Fortnite and balancing something in Overwatch is astronomical because in in Overwatch every character plays completely differently, and changing one thing on one character might change something on a different character. Whereas Fortnite is just balancing one, a single gun to shoot differently or to have a slower rate of fire or something like that.
Well, they've changed elements to like how building happens. They're playing with a lot of different things. They're constantly
Right, but
tweaking
it
things in the game.
but the thing is that there's like every character plays exactly the same in Fortnite. Everyone has the same tools at their disposal. Whereas in Overwatch, not so much. When you change something about one character, that can completely fuck up the way another character works.
Right, and the only reason that framework actually works, and the only reason I can accept that argument as you've put it forward, is the simple fact that they just don't have enough characters. I think if they had enough viable characters in the character pool, then one change might affect one hero, but that's kind of like the way the game's supposed to be played.
But
There's
there is,
supposed
I
to be
mean,
built-in counters and stuff like that.
if you watch the Overwatch League, there's only like I think one or two characters that are picked at really low rate. Everyone else is, they get picked.
Well, even if you listen to pros, because I actually do listen to pros speak about the game, and they basically say, hey, look, there's a few characters that you kind of have to play, and then there's other characters that just don't, they're just not as efficient as all the other characters. And, that's just true. And, like, there's only a few ways you can play the game. Like, there's just a few. It's like you play dive, it's basically what you can play. And yes, there are other metas developing, but I think the game in general would be in a much, much better state if they just had more characters. Like, that's really all Overwatch needs. It's
Yeah,
just
but I mean,
enough characters
it's
that
not easy to just add one character. Like even adding one character is a lot of work.
I get it. That doesn't solve the problem though. Like we're talking about the health of the game, and the health of the game is determined by the quantity of characters and different ways to play. Like once you're capable of playing several different ways, whether that be like stun meta, burst meta, pick meta, blah blah blah, whatever you want to call it. Like I know I'm just throwing things out there, but I'm just trying to make a point that there should be several ways to play the game. Right now, it feels like you have dive, triple support. That's like it. And triple support hasn't made it to the league yet, right? Just because they haven't introduced some of those elements like Brigitte to the Overwatch League.
Yeah,
Correct?
no, she's not in it yet. She might be in this upcoming stage that starts.
Right, yeah, because I remember I listened to a few YouTube channels and stuff, and they talked about how slow it was that they were adding content to the Overwatch League and how
Well,
that
because
disjointed
the
disconnection.
way they do it so that um they have them set to the same patch for the whole set, like the whole time of the stage, because and it makes sense because it's not really fair if midway through the stage a character gets completely changed, because that could completely change the way a team plays. So they play on the same patch so that they're all on an even playing field for the whole stage. And then when the next stage happens, they they have like a couple weeks of break in between where they play with all the new stuff and get used to this and work on new strategies and then go into the next stage.
I mean, sure, but like even in that podcast or discussion that I listened to, they talked about how that kind of hurts the game as well. A lot of people look up to the pros to learn how to play the game properly, get the proper advice to kind of make those decisions, and without being able to do that, you know, watching the Overwatch League, it just loses a little steam, like a lot of steam actually. And a lot of the community were kind of like, we don't like that. And even if, because I mean, everybody has to make the adjustment if you just evolve the patch as we go. And again, it's part of competition. I just think it would just be better for the life of the game if all these things work together and, existed at the same time, which is multiple ways to play the game. Make sure that you have the most competitive environment that you possibly can, which includes like scoreboards and role queues and things of that nature. And I think the game would be in much better health. But there's just a lot of issues that I understand have really really hard, answers to. But pick up the pace because that's the only thing that's gonna keep the health of your game as healthy as it possibly can be. Because like you said, Fortnite might have the luck of balancing a game easier than the other one, but they've added like a lot of weird things, like impulse grenades and stuff. Like there's like a lot of weird things in the game, and not as complex as Overwatch. I'll give you that for sure, but still, I don't think it's easy. You know.
I think it's significantly easier, is all I'm saying.
There might be some truth to it, but okay, that's the bed you chose. Like you can't whine about it. You just got to go fix it.
Right. No, that's what I'm saying. Like, you're comparing the time frames is what that was what my whole thing is. Like, you can't compare the time frames because of how much easier it is to do one over the other.
See, Juju says, I agree with you about the competitive side of Overwatch. I feel like you should be allowed to choose what you main. If you could only play defensive heroes and you can pick defensive heroes to get put into a team where you shouldn't be difficult to choose something,
Yeah,
switch.
I agree with that too. Like where you queue as like a type, like you can queue up as a flex or queue up as a healer or queue up as a tank, and that way like it'll match you with other people who will want to play the positions, like play the positions they queued up for, so you have a better team comp than when you just queue with 6 random people and everyone wants to play Hanzo.
Right. Although Hanzo's pretty boost right now.
Dude, he's ridiculous.
So before we beat this to death, because we can, what games do you think are doing it wrong? Like, just what games are bad?
Ubisoft is getting better, but there is a period there where any Ubisoft game was a nightmare. Uh, I don't know. I can't think of any of the sports games. They're doing it wrong. Specifically NBA 2K. Like, I think we touched a little bit about it last week or sometime recently. I remember talking to you about it. But the new NBA 2K18 is done very wrong, and I really hope they fix it
Pay
because
to
it
play,
is a
right?
good game. Yeah, it's basically like a pay to win or pay to play. It's basically you have to pay more than $60 if you don't want to spend like more than a year trying to grind your character up. It's so ridiculous. Like you do not get currency at any like normal rate in that game, and it's just it's a shame because it's such a good, like it's a good game at heart. Like the basketball in it is fine, but it's just they have this mode that has been good for so many years, and it just gets continuously worse because they water it down with these microtransactions. And this year was like absolutely just ridiculous. And I couldn't sit back. Like I supported it in the sake that I bought it, but now I'm not buying any more 2K games, and it sucks because I really like basketball, but I can't in my right mind pay money for a game that I'm gonna play for 2 days because it's gonna take me, I just don't I can't put in the time to actually not get good, but to level up my character because it's just a grind fest. So that game does it very wrong. That's the one that comes most to my head right
For me, I I would I kind of don't know because they're basically just. I think a lot of games have the potential to be really really awesome. There's like usually only a few things that people need to change and or fix to actually have an awesome game. I don't think in general that a lot of publishers are bad. I just think that in general like they don't listen. They just don't listen. Either the developers are out to create a specific game and they just ride with it, or B they just like don't listen. Like it's so
now.
frustrating, because it's just like we're telling you the game that we want. We're telling you the game that we want. We have no issues giving you feedback and going, hey, look, these elements are messed up and need to be fixed. These bugs exist, they need to be fixed. Otherwise, we can't mess with your game. And like, they just don't seem to listen. Like, the biggest thing is like, Halo Wars is getting better. 343, I think, is getting better. But like, in general, like, it's just a disaster because they just don't provide what it is we're looking for. It's like, hey, we want old school Halo. All right, we'll release Master Chief Collection. Disaster. Like the online play isn't where it needs to be. Some of the games don't work. Some of the elements don't work. Like it's like we asked for something simple. A lot of people bought it, and then it was like we can't play it, so it dies. And it's like it's frustrating. Have you heard about the whole Halo Online, the El Dorado?
No, I don't follow Halo at all. What
Okay.
happened?
So basically, the outcry that I just made that we want classic Halo, we just want a better Forge mode to create our own maps. We want to be able to tinker with like weapons and balancing and things of that nature. And they had a project for it, and you know, like they canceled the project because they were coming out with something else. And and then the people who were working on that project continued to work on it basically, and they completed it. They had massive, massive like media support and people came in droves, to come play this old game, you know,
Mm-hmm.
the old version of the game with the updated settings and all that other stuff and the best or the better forge, and they basically got it off the ground. And immediately 343 slash Microsoft, mainly Microsoft, came in and was like, hey, look, you guys can't stream this game, you can't continue the production of this game at all. Like we have to protect our IP, and quite frankly, you guys are kind of overstepping those bounds. So we're shutting down the project. And they basically said, we obviously realized through the massive media support that you guys got, through the massive crowds that came to watch people play this game, to how many people download the game itself, that you guys, this is what you want. We're happy to announce that we were already working on that. And it's just like, they should have just bought El Dorado. They should have just bought that version of the game, let them continue working on it, hire them, and then just hand it
I
over.
mean,
Like, I really hate.
you could say the same thing about Blizzard and vanilla servers for World of Warcraft, where there are a few like private vanilla servers. And what I mean, for anyone who doesn't know what a vanilla server is the original version of World of Warcraft before all the expansions. There are private servers that have been growing in recent years for people who just want to play the old version of World of Warcraft before any of the expansions, anything like that. And it got a few times it gets really, really popular, and Blizzard will shut them down. And we'll get another one will pop up. It'll get really, really popular. Blizzard will shut it down. And then this year they announced that they're going to do their own, which is why they're doing that. But I thought the same thing. I thought why not just absorb this one that's already going and just like, but I mean, I guess I understand the reasons, because World of Warcraft is a pay to play game. You have to pay $15 a month. And I'm sure they're still going to charge $15 a month to play Vanilla WoW. Whereas these private servers, it is free 99. So I'm sure they did not want that.
I mean, they don't want free 99, but it's like, and Juju made the comment about 2K. Like, I don't think any of these publishers, any of the AAA, like, publishers do not need more money. They already make more money than ever. Like the gaming industry, like I think a lot of people feel this way about games in general, but like they're making more money than ever. They make more money than movies. Like the industry's getting out of control. It's getting insane. Even on the esports side,
Mm-hmm.
like all this stuff is like it's becoming huge. It's about to break mainstream. Everybody's going to be doing it. Everyone's going to have one in their house. There's going to be betting, there's going to be gambling, there's going to be competitive sports. Like it's going everywhere. It's getting everywhere. And they just it's a lie. That's just not true. They just don't need more money. They want more money, sure. We can give them that, but like do they need it? No, cuz they're making billions on these games anyway. Because
Well, okay, now what's your yes and no? Yes to a lot of the things you said, but not always true, because you have to pay these people who are continuously working on the game still, whether it be maintaining servers or balancing when issues go wrong, like stuff like that. And this money in part goes to paying them. Like especially for a lot of these like smaller game companies. For bigger game companies, you might be correct, but for the smaller ones, that's how they're getting paid is from all these microtransactions and stuff like that, or that's how they're getting paid post creation of the game. Because back in the day when a game was made, it went out, it shipped, it was done, everybody moved on to their next project. Not the case anymore. Now you kind of have to stay on with the project for a long time after, specifically if it's an online run game, because there's all these balancing and tweaks and things that you're going to need to fix, and they need to pay them for that. So I understand it to some extent, but not 100%.
I mean, not 2K. Like I'm specifically referring to AAA companies because those are the ones that typically complain. Like I think I wish the environment was better for indie games, um, but it is what it is, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, 2K doesn't need to whatchamacallit. They don't, I mean, like they could go just see, the thing with that game is if they just had the microtransactions for like the ultimate team or the my team mode, like that's fine. That I don't care about that. That's buying like if I go to a store and I want a pack of cards, I buy a pack of cards. If I want to play that game and want a pack of cards, I'll buy a pack of cards. That's fine. I shouldn't have to pay real money to level up the dude who sort of looks like me that I really don't care with about playing online or not.
It's basically they're asking you to pay for the basic campaign of 2K, which is ridiculous. It's it's
Mm-hmm.
it's supposed to be
Right.
the natural part of the game. It's supposed to be like what you're supposed to do when you're not versing people. It's like the campaign, the single campaign, and it costing more money is just crazy. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
like one of the it's one of the main points that you buy a game is for that campaign experience. And I think everybody knows that they're withholding content, from the rip. So it's like we have this stuff, we're gonna hold on to it because we can make pocket change from this, that, and the other. And it's like that's what I think everybody's feeling. And
Hmm.
like again, this doesn't apply to indie games. This mainly applies to AAA games because they are the market. Indie games, there's tons of them. Half of them don't see the day of light. It's AAA. AAA owns these kinds of the market basically. The major players. So it's
Is
like,
is Epic considered AAA?
yeah,
Um, say so. I don't know if I'd consider them AAA. They don't really like when I think like AAA. I think like really really big like EA,
Blizzard,
Ubisoft,
right?
Blizzard, Blizzard, Activision, whatever. Like Epic Games has like 5 games under their belt.
I mean, sure, as far as like longevity, but they've already made enough money, in my opinion, to be considered a AAA game. Quite frankly, everybody thinks it's a AAA game anyway. It performs like one. So it's
Right, but
like,
I mean, just because it performs like one doesn't mean it is.
I mean,
Like
if you make,
they don't have a shit ton of people who work for them. I don't think it's not like I said, like EA or Activision or any of these other companies where there's like a ton and ton of people who work for them.
I mean, at this point, they're the biggest game around. I think
Right,
that's easy to say.
but right, exactly. But what I'm saying is, what you're saying that uh, never mind, forget it. It's not worth it.
Well, basically, they have everything they need, I think, to be a AAA game or a company. Like they have enough money. If they need to hire more, I'm sure that's like a process and stuff like that. But they've made it. It's kind of like whether or not someone's famous or not. Whether or not they've proven themselves or not. And I think as a company, and they have, and that's why I would consider it still a AAA company. But I understand where you're coming from. Like they don't have 3 StarCrafts. They don't have you know WoW and
Well, I mean, they
whatnot
haven't
and
even
stuff.
been around for all that long either. Like they're what 19? Oh, it says 1991. Wow, they have been around longer than I have, or about as long as I have, I guess. Epic Mega Man Games Inc. Yeah, never mind. They haven't been. They've only been called Epic Games since 2000. Epic
Gotcha,
Mega
gotcha.
Man Games. Oh, Epic Mega Games. I was like, how can they call themselves Mega Man Games? Capcom's gonna go crazy.
So Juju asks, what other games would you want to see more in the future? Me personally, um, I
Like
like.
game types or
Well, I think she just means in general. Like me personally, like I really enjoy turn-based strategy games.
yeah, so game
Like
type.
they just they just don't really exist in my eyes. They end up being JRPGs. They become some modified versions, and they don't feel pure. So more Persona 5s. Dan's down with that too, I'm sure. And just more traditional turn-based strategies. Like I think at its core, like people want these damn games. People will continue to buy Final Fantasy games. And like I don't even think they're turn-based strategy games anymore. They're just not the same thing. They've morphed into a different genre, and like I don't know why the turn-based has died the way it's died, in my opinion.
Mhm.
But like it's clear that people want more of these games, and I would just like to see more of them.
Yeah,
Like I kind of don't really like the publishers that are out now. They just don't suit my fancy. And
yeah.
so like that's just kind of where I would shoot. It's just more of that. I even listened to a YouTube video today where they were talking about the gaming industry, and there's a lot of genres that just don't exist anymore. It just doesn't feel like there's enough to go around. And I think companies in general are just they're afraid of taking risks. And like I mentioned earlier, they're recycling the same thing over and over and over because it makes money. People still buy. So
Yep. And games that I would like, I mean, both of our answers are not like what the majority of, I guess, the gaming market would be, which a lot of that is surrounded around like competitive shooters and stuff like that. Mine would also be I like turn-based RPGs. I'm a big fan of those. But in addition to that, a game type, I guess, uh, but also it is a game called Puzzle Fighter. I would like to see more Puzzle Fighter because that game is awesome. Uh, and is a great game. They're actually making like a Puzzle Fighter spin-off for the Switch. Well, not a spin-off. It's like some other company is making it, but it plays exactly like Puzzle Fighter, and it's coming out for the Switch. And I'm pretty excited for it. But it has a really hefty price tag. If any gaming creators are out there, if you're making a Puzzle Fighter game, I thank you. Please keep the price tag at about $20 because I can't afford to pay $40 for a game that's literally just fighting puzzles. But yeah, that game type, like if we had more puzzle fighters, like just puzzle games in general, man, like I really like puzzle games. Whatever that might mean or whatever anybody might think of that. But I love puzzle games. Like that's why I like platformers so much, because in general they're just like solving puzzles over and over again. Little mind teasers. Makes you think.
And Alvin stopped by. What up, Smurf? He's in D Live. I don't know if you have that open, but
I do
thanks for
not.
stopping by, man.
What's up? What's up? What's up?
So I mean, I think that's about it. And then I would like more Dead Space games because I'm gonna go both ways. Or I'm gonna pick a genre that I really want to see more of, and then kind of like the game that I like. I want more Dead Space type of games to where it's like
Survival, like a horror game?
a little bit, yeah. Like I actually really do
Other
enjoy
than
those horror
Dead
games.
Space 3 wasn't super horror-y, but the first two were pretty
Yeah, the
horror-y.
first two were pretty awesome. Like, and yeah, I wouldn't talk about three. Like in that game, I feel like was kind of killed by EA in a sense, to where it's like it was those first two were so epic, man. And the second one was kind of less so. They kind of did more of the same, and it needs a little evolution as we go. And there just wasn't enough of it.
It was really soon after the first one came out, though, that the second one came out. Like, there wasn't a huge, like, gap of time. That's my guess why it was, like, pretty similar.
Right, and the Lolly King says the big problem with AAA games these days is microtransactions. I
Yep.
mean, I would agree to an
Not
extent.
100%, but
Yeah,
yeah.
because I love the extra content. Like,
Yeah, exactly. We've talked about this on many episodes. Like, if microtransactions are done well, it's not a bad thing. Like Overwatch, they put in these new skins and stuff, and you don't necessarily need to spend the money, but you can. If the microtransactions become a performance thing, like you can't be good at the game unless you spend the money. That's
buy
where the
this weapon.
that's where the issues lie. It's like how Paladins did it for a bit, how Star Wars Battlefront 2 did it for a bit, stuff like that. Like no bueno, but Fortnite does it fine. I mean, I think everything in Fortnite has other than the battle pass. Like the battle pass is a steal compared to everything else in that game, which has a ridiculous price tag attached to it. But I guess you can earn that currency if you own the versus the world mode or whatever the heck it's called, like the horde mode.
Right.
So
And thanks for that follow,
if it's hey, welcome. Yeah, as long as it's not pay to win, exactly. I didn't know Call of Duty 2 World War II was pay to win. I haven't played the new. I don't play really any Call of Duties, but I definitely have not played that one yet.
I mean, that's the king of recycled games, by the way. And so I actually hate Call of Duty with a passion. Like I literally hate it. And maybe it's just because I'm a fan of Halo, and I feel like the Call of Duty series is ultimately what destroyed Halo, because I'm sure the Halo developers were like, we should be more like them because they make a lot of money. And I'm like,
I think there's a lot of truth to that statement. I think
ugh.
there is a lot of truth to that statement.
I mean, we might as well go into a little bit of DLC and expansions. And
Okay.
quite frankly, I think DLC and expansions, for the most part, are done pretty good in a sense. But I wish that DLC
Some for the most
functioned
part.
more like expansions. I prefer expansions over tidbits. I don't
Yeah.
want. I want like a longer campaign. I want
Right.
more units. I want those things. More
Right.
elements. Less skins and so on and so forth. And so it's like I wish that they would spend more time making campaigns, because I know the market says we want multiplayer, but we also want campaigns. It's been an afterthought because I think they've made a bunch of terrible campaigns lately outside of God of War. No one ever speaks
Oh,
bad about it.
speaking about God of War, Lolly Queen just asked about it in the chat. And yeah, as he said, God of War has been pretty good, and I played through it. I loved it. If you haven't played it, I recommend you do it. Uh, doesn't really fall into anything we're talking about here, but I'm glad you asked it because I do like talking about it. So, but anyway, let's continue on with what we're talking about here,
So
Lan.
so yeah, like I've listened to a lot of videos about God of War. I'll eventually get it, but no one's ever said anything bad. And basically they were like, hey, this definitely proves that like people want single player campaigns. It's just
Mm-hmm.
you guys are doing a poor job making them. Period. And if you guys spend more time making quality things, you'll get better results. And that's
Mm-hmm.
just that. It's like we love platforms. We
Yeah, I
love
mean,
story based things. Like
Horizon's a game with a good DLC expansion. I haven't played it yet, but it has a lot of added content that they added with the story. Like I think at least 10 hours more of story. So it's not that's bigger than some games. So I think they did a very good job with their DLC expansion editions as well. And
you
that's
know
another single player game that I think gets a good amount of praise, but it also gets overshadowed because of Legend of Zelda. But that's a different story. It's
right.
neither here nor there.
And even games like Dead Space, like I mentioned, like the first one, probably not so much the second one. I don't even think I remember the second one too much as far as the story's concerned. But I really enjoyed that story. I really liked how in depth they were about like how people go crazy and stuff. I like all the elements they left out about the story, so it's like you don't really know why people are going crazy. You build
Mhm.
this little stone rock thing and you carve it in a specific direction and you point it and you put it in a specific place and people just get fucking mad. And that part, like, there's so much to enjoy about it and stuff like that. I really like that genre, to be honest. Like,
Mhm.
Ubisoft does it well with Far Cry 5, giving out funny and goofy DLCs. I'm not a big fan of the Far Cry series, to be honest.
I have five, have yet to touch it. It got I bought it. Well, I game share with my buddy, so he bought it when I was playing through Tales of Berseria, and then I went on vacation, and then I came back and played God of War, and now I've been playing Fortnite, so I haven't gone back to Far Cry 5. But I've only heard good things about Far Cry 5, and I do like the way that they've been doing like weekly DLC things where it's free stuff too. Like it's all stuff you obtain by playing the game.
So, yeah, I mean, I assume it's good. People like it, but like games like that remind me of Grand Theft Auto. And yes, I play the Grand Theft Auto series, but like only so much. And then like once I beat it, I just kind of put it down. And so it's like I don't like spending a whole lot of those things because I'm gonna play it one time and then kind of put it down just because I don't know. That's just how I treat those games.
Mm-hmm.
How about you?
That's
Like
I mean that's how I treat most single player games, honestly, is like I'll just play it. I'll play the regular story and then put it down. Like sometimes I go back for expansions and like extra DLC and stuff like that. But very rarely. It depends how much I like the game, I guess. Like if God of War came out with an expansion, I would more than likely like reset myself into that. Uh and like there's some single player games that I think are just amazing enough to totally just be willing to play again. But well,
Borderlands.
Borderlands has like some of the best expansions too,
They
because
do. They do it
you're
right.
getting these longer story content expansions that expand the world around them a little bit, but are all significant. At least in Borderlands 2, they're all significantly different enough from the world of the regular game. So yeah, they were kind of pricey at launch, but I mean now you can get like the whole handsome collection for scraps. Uh, it's really cool. Um, hey, by the way, thanks for the donation, GGB. I really appreciate that. That's really nice of you. You didn't have to do that, and all of us here, Money Match Gaming, really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Whatchamacallit. But yeah, so I lost my train of thought.
Borderlands
Yeah,
DLC. They
Borderlands
all offer
DLC.
something different.
Right. Exactly. They're all different. Like there's the Torg expansion where it's basically all about explosive weapons and everything is like it's Thunderdome but with explosive weapons and cars and stuff and it's really cool. And then you have uh like Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep, which is all told from the perspective of a Dungeons and Dragons game, which completely changes the setting and the way a lot of the weapons work. And there's a lot of like unique grenades and stuff to like make you throw a fireball or a lightning shock or something like that, which I thought was really cool. And if they make Borderlands 3, I am gonna fangirl too.
This is his favorite game for sure.
It's one of my favorite games. They actually just announced today that they're not talking about it at E3, and it really bummed me out. But I'm still okay because there's a lot of good games down the pipeline coming out the rest of this year. So, and also they said whenever they announce Borderlands 3, it's coming within a few months after that. So that's really exciting too. So that means when they announce it, it's ready to come out, and I'm pretty sure they're almost done with it. So Borderlands is a good thing.
Um, let's answer some of the questions earlier. We did talk about Fortnite a little bit earlier, and we'll run it over real quick again. Basically, I think Fortnite kind of beat out PUBG because their game is a little bit more evolved with the building. It changes the dynamics of that game type entirely, and then they're just better about fixing bugs and adding things to their game. Period. It's just that simple. You know,
Yep.
cosmetics, they're expensive, but I think even PUBGs are way more expensive. It's like one item could be like $10 and it'd be like a hat. You know, and it's like you have to pay to change your character. There's like a lot of
And
weird
like
things about the damn
not
game.
only is a hat, it's just like a boring regular hat. Like
Right.
if you get a hat in Fortnite, it's like a dang top hat with a cat jumping out of it, who's doing like the dance from the one video where the dude's walking across the street dancing to "Take on Me" by Aha. Like it's some ridiculous shit. Like if I ever bought DLC from Fortnite, for the most part, I feel like I'm getting
Your money's worth.
yeah, for like even if I buy the giant tomato guy, because that's silly and great. But if you you won't get that in Fortnite or in PUBG, you'll get like a shirt with the words tomato on it.
Yeah, and
And
it'll
it's
be
just like a white
plaid
tee
or something.
in,
Yeah,
in
it'll be
like
like plaid.
in like
You're
Times New Roman font tomato.
Right. That's all you get. And then the last part that we kind of didn't touch on a whole lot is like they involve culture. Dude, like
Mhm.
they go deep. The whole
Yeah.
Thanos showing up, even though it wasn't their idea, they were like, "Yes, let's do it tomorrow." Like you
Mhm.
know they did it as fast as humanly possible. You know,
Mhm.
all those dances, how they're like, "Oh, this actually got the most views. It is a ridiculous dance, but we're going to add it anyway." Like
Mhm.
they didn't have to do that. You know, like for the most part, if you're a reasonable individual, you were like, yeah, you did stuff, but it wasn't a dance, bro. Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
why it got so popular. But they were like, no, like it was fun. It's all in good fun. Let's have fun as a community. Let's add that. You know, so it's like I can tell you when I was like watching the streamers' responses and all the YouTubers and all those people
Mhm.
that were playing the game, but like, whoa, they actually added Orange Kid's
Eh,
dance.
Yeah.
Like that happened.
That's awesome.
They
And I'm
smile and they go, dude, Epic's doing it right.
Yeah. And on top of all that, Fortnite is just a way more approachable game than PlayerUnknown's Battleground is. From just by looking at it. If I saw like Fortnite and PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds side by side, Fortnite just it's more colorful. Your eyes are attached to it. It's just a more approachable game. Like if I saw those two things, I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna go try this one that looks like it looks not real. Like it looks like a fun new world to submerge myself in. Whereas PlayerUnknown's Battleground just looks like boring
It's,
brown
yeah, no,
everything.
it's like not even clean. It doesn't even look clean. Like maybe, well, I have a pretty good computer, so it's like it should look clean on mine too. Because like every game that I play, I can play on the highest settings and all that other stuff, and it still just looks bad,
Mhm.
bad, you know. And then like you said, Fortnite has the clean textures and all that other different stuff, you know, and it just looks good.
It looks nice. It looks fun. It looks different. It doesn't look like boring brown and blue skies. Everything in PlayerUnknown's Battleground is brown. It's very depressing. It's a depressing looking game. And I understand it kind of should be like the whole idea of being on this island, trapped on this island, and there's 100 people all trying to kill each other. That's a very depressing concept. But whatever. It's a
Whatever.
video game.
Right. So let's
uh,
get into the Red Dead Redemption. Do you have any thoughts, feelings about Red Dead
I'm
Redemption?
not all right. So I'm not a Rockstar game guy. I don't really like any of the games that they come out with. Uh, so I'm not getting Red Dead Redemption, and I'm kind of okay with it. I've never played the other ones. Never really got it. Like never really wanted to. So that's my thoughts on it. However, more power to the people excited about it because it's always good to be excited about something. And I understand, especially because it's a game that people have been asking for years. For it to finally come to fruition is really nice. So I have all the respect for the Red Dead community. I am just not a member myself.
I'm kind of the same way. I mentioned
Hmm.
a little bit earlier that like the Rockstar games, that game type, the GTA's and stuff like that. Like I'm good for one playthrough.
Hmm.
I like even games like Skyrim because Rockstar games remind me of games like Skyrim.
Bethesda, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's where you have just a lot of aimless things to do, and like I don't need it,
Direction.
but I like it. I like a compelling story. I like all those different types of things, and if you have a bunch of side quests, it
Hmm.
kind of feels like you're filling the void with side quests, and the main quests tend to be really meh. So it's like one of those situations to where I just feel like it just doesn't live up to the hype as far as the story is concerned. So, that's just kind of how I feel about it, because most of those games do end up being that. Although,
Yeah.
although
I
Red Dead Redemption apparently is an exception. Everything that I've heard about it is awesome. So it's like, maybe I should give it a try.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard, like I said, I've heard good things. Like when it comes down to it, I'll probably end up getting. It'll be like Far Cry 5, where it's something that I wasn't gonna get, but then my buddy who I game share with wants it, and I'm like, fine, I'll spend $30 for it to collect virtual dust on my Xbox hard drive, no problem. And then one day I'll go to it, but it's not something that's really on my radar right now. Because also it comes out around the same time as the new Spider-Man game, and that game looks incredible. And I could probably talk about that, like my feelings about that game for an hour, but I won't. We'll save that for another time. But that Spider-Man game ooh, looks beautiful.
I roll my eyes every time Rockstar milks GTA 5. I
It's
mean,
true though.
sure, but like
That
people
that
love that
game
damn
that
game.
game has really devolved. It's crazy, dude. That the stuff for that game always goes on sale on Xbox, and it's like $300 for a shark and 15 billion virtual currency that means nothing. I'm like, dude, people are actually spending $300 on this stupid pack though for a game that came out like 8 years ago for this dang shark.
They need to go back to San Andreas though, and just do the gang wars. Like I don't know, they just don't take advantage of the things that I feel like they should be.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Spider-Man game. Juju wants to know.
What Spider-Man game? Oh, all right. So Juju, it's coming out for the PS4. It's called Spider-Man. You should look it up. There's a lot of content out on it already. Game Informer posted a lot of gameplay videos and stuff. It is its own unique story, focusing on a Peter Parker Spider-Man. Uh, However, I do think that Miles Morales might make an appearance in the game, which I think is kind of cool. And it's kind of like like it's a free world, like open world Spider-Man game, like they all should be now because it's 2018 and that's what everybody wants to do with the Spider-Man game. But the mechanics they have for the free world make it so that you really don't ever have to stop. Like the movement is really fluid. You just move from one thing to the other, and it looks absolutely gorgeous. And the combat is a lot like if Spider-Man, if like a good Spider-Man game had a baby with Batman Arkham Asylum, that's the kind of combat you get. And oh boy, is it something to behold. Definitely check out those videos on YouTube. I'm hyping up Game Informer right now for like this one reason. Normally, Game Informer, whatever, they're kind of biased, but they posted a lot of cool stuff on the Spider-Man game, so they've got my respect for that. That's all
So,
I'm gonna say on that.
all right. So, and about the San Andreas, I just mean like the way the game plays. So GTA 5 definitely, I wouldn't say feels like San Andreas, and I mean I'm sure there's positives to that because it's a cleaner game most likely, but you know, it should just have that feel. It should be a gangster doing gangster things, and
Sadly, it is only a PS4 exclusive, Juju. But it is a. I mean, I got a PS4 for Persona 5. There's a lot of cool things on PlayStation 4 right now that I think makes it a console worth looking at. I understand if money's tight, money's always tight. So definitely don't go out and spend all your money on a PS4. But if you know someone with a PS4, maybe ask them to borrow for that Spider-Man game. Or if they get it, just go over to the house and watch them play it, because everything I've watched about it makes it even just as enjoyable as I imagine playing it does.
right. I'll have one number 9, two number fours, a number 7 with a large Coke, a number 5 with a large Coke, a number three with two small fries. Yeah, I was actually pretty weak. It just needs more of that. So, the last thing that I want to talk about, because we're about to run out of time, and I don't necessarily think you feel this way, but I definitely
Mhm.
feel this way. I think that the media funnel for games in general are a little decentralized. I think, like there hasn't been a clean media outfit that actually kind of owns the space in itself, and so you get all these like weird outlier opinions and stuff like that, and they don't reach like everyone versus something like ESPN that has like a grip, and then they just kind of have a clean message to deliver business information and things of that nature. And there are like the kind of summits and things of that nature, so like E3 and so on and so forth, Nintendo Direct, those different types of things. But I think as far as like mass like reach and all the other stuff and reaching everyone's radar, they don't quite hit the mark like ESPN does. And so
Yeah, I guess the closest thing to ESPN I would say is maybe like IGN. IGN's pretty big.
yeah.
But yeah, even then, like IGN doesn't get all the announcements. It's not like everything goes like there first. But I think that's for a lot of media today. Is just we live in a different world where media is more accessible, which means that there's a lot more different means for getting media. So a lot of the times you can get everything you need to know from Twitter or Reddit or something like that. And I think people prefer that because it has like a more personal feel than getting it from like a news source, say. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
But
I mean,
I do agree that there isn't really like a proper game like because there used to be kind of like even on TV there was like G4, which was sort of kind of like that, but we don't have that channel anymore. And it's I mean we have Game Informer and GameSpot and IGN, and they all do basically the same thing, but they all get their own different announcements and sources and stuff like that.
save the internet. I'm
Yeah, for
I'm
sure.
I'm
Hashtag
happy
save
for
it.
that too. Yeah, like it sucks, man. Like I don't know. Like I was talking earlier because I was having issues with my internet company. Like it almost makes me like if I get successful, just go, all right, I'm gonna create my own. Like let's.
Do you watch Silicon Valley?
I do not. I do
Oh
not.
man. All right. So that's funny that you said create your own internet because that's what the topic of this most recent season of Silicon Valley was about. You should watch that show. It's actually very good. Uh, but yeah, in this most recent season, the main character was working on like their company was working on building their own decentralized internet.
That would be the greatest. I really just like even in our side conversations and our background, me and Alvin are always like, we just stupid, like none of the rules that they took away were unreasonable. No one's like,
Mhm.
yeah, those are bad rules. Like, of course of course we're not going to charge you for bandwidth and all the other stuff and nitpick and nickel and dime you. And it's like, well, then why are you taking away those rules? Because that's the only thing that you're allowed to do, or you can't do within the rules. And so it's
Mhm.
like, what are you actually losing? So it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's just a way for people to get more money out of us. It's shitty, and I really hope that everything goes back to normal. I don't understand why like there are people on the side that they think this is a good thing unless it's lining their pockets. Like I understand from that perspective, but at the same time, fuck that guy. Uh, so yeah, net neutrality, ridiculous. Save the internet, please, for the love of God. I hope that it gets saved.
Right. I think it did pass in the House just too late or something like that. I heard that yesterday. My wife was talking about it and how Congress attempted to do something. They just did it too late, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and so it just didn't count or something like that. And so, I'm like telling that story secondhand, and everybody knows how those goes. But something
Mm-hmm.
along those lines that I don't know. Maybe they purposely didn't,
Oh,
do it in time.
great.
I don't know.
Breaking news. Sony is ending production on physical Vita games. I don't know if anyone had a PlayStation Vita. I know a few friends had one. They're upset about it. They're talking about it in a group chat I'm in. But
Huh.
yeah, RIP PlayStation Vita.
Well, if they're just physical games, that's fine. Like, I mean, for the most part, people are going that direction. Maybe it is forced though. Maybe because, like, I don't know, it is convenient for the most part. Like, I'll download my games. Like, GameStop's dying. If you don't know,
Mhm.
they're like dying. I think over the past like year and a half or something, their stock dropped like 50 some odd percent.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
getting
it's
grim for
just
them.
it's way more convenient to have physical Vita games because memory sticks for the PlayStation Vita are stupid expensive because Sony's. I love Sony, but I hate Sony for so many reasons because they're a bunch of assholes and they're like, well, you can't use a micro USB. You have to buy our exclusive uh, Sony PlayStation memory card, which is dumb and big. So yeah, I don't, but it doesn't hold like a lot of space. Like I think the biggest one you can get there is like 128 gigs or something like that. So not having the physical game production on the Vita is a little is sad.
Right, because the game doesn't seem, or the console. I guess we
Yeah,
can call it console. It just doesn't
it's a
function
it's
to
a
full
it's a I
capacity.
mean it's a handheld. It's like a DS or anything of that nature.
Right. But that pretty much does it for me, man. I'm
Yeah.
gonna give my general thoughts real quick. So I think the gaming industry, as far as like financially, doing great, doing awesome, never been better. You know,
Wait,
I think
we got 1,000 follows.
since the last time Juju's been around, yeah.
Oh, nice.
So Juju was around kind of like earlier, and then kind of graduated school, got a job, started all that transformation, kind of went away. Obviously, you know that's kind of what happens when you go
Yeah.
through those life changes, and
Oh, for sure.
you know, so
Well,
she's
cool.
back, which is
Well,
cool
I
and awesome.
appreciate the nice words.
So you know, essentially, you know, gaming industry better than ever. You know, I
Yeah, I
think
mean, with all highs comes some lows. You know, nothing is perfect, so you gotta
right.
understand that and everything. And I think we're going in a good direction. And I'd like to see. I think even with the microtransactions, I think we're going in a good direction because it's very clear that public backlash does make a difference. It is evident in a few different games that have had these shitty microtransaction things and have changed them. So be vocal. Stay if something's if even if it's a video game you don't like is not or a video game you like is doing something you don't like, just say something. If enough people say it, sometimes it'll change. So that's a cool thing about like the way the video game community is going now. Whereas it does feel like your voice sometimes matters.
I think really because like a lot of people bash people for like microtransactions and stuff and how people were always like, hey, you shouldn't have them, and people were like, we need to fight back. But I really think that that happened in like mobile games and stuff like that, and then council saw that and were like, hey, let's do
Right.
that,
The
and that's
difference
why it came.
the main yeah, right, but the main difference being that like 99% of mobile games are free at heart, whereas most console games have a price tag before the extra costs.
There's that too. And in the Lolly Queen, I actually agree with you. We definitely need more single player campaign games. I
And
mentioned that
definitely
early
more
in the
split
stream, and
screens. We are running low
100%
on couch co-op.
right.
The games need to understand that if they're going to include a multiplayer mode, somehow make a couch co-op mode. Not every game. Some games you don't need it, but a lot of games it's fun to have a friend over and play it with a friend.
No,
I
it
I
needs it.
hate having games where I'm like even Destiny, man. You should be able to play two-player Destiny on the same Xbox if like split screen if you have two accounts logged in. I don't see why you shouldn't be able to do that.
You should like
Yeah.
100%. Like that was one of the biggest gripes about Halo. Like that's how we grew up playing this damn game. And you're
Yeah.
telling me I can't have my friends over and play the game because you want to be fancy and make everybody buy an Xbox? You
Eight
guys
smelly people in one room with two TVs and two Xboxes set up
back
on
to
the
back
opposite. Yeah, exactly.
like other end you're yelling at each other, you know, you're like, "Oh, you like that. You
There's
like
and yeah, and
that."
there's always one guy's like, "Stop screen peeking, Carl."
Right. Right. Why you gotta cheat, man? Like the 007 days?
Yeah,
That was
exactly.
probably the funnest for me. Like playing game modes like Slap, to
Dude,
where
just
it's like,
playing games with your friends when they're like in the same room as you is a million times better than playing that same game online. And like that's how I feel. And I feel like I'm in the room sometimes with my friends when I'm playing online, but when they're actually in the room, it's just better. Everything like it's it's like a release almost. I don't know.
I know the feeling. For
I
real, for
love
real.
I love I love I love playing like games with my friends when they're over.
but you know what it is. So, my general thoughts: the game industry, as far as a business, is doing great. It's doing awesome. I think there is a little disconnect from the customers versus the business. And every industry goes through this, especially in their infancy stage, to where it's like gaming's always kind of been big, but it's been getting monstrous, and we're at that point to where like business people are 100% like invested and know like it's worth. Especially seeing how games are starting to make more than movies and things of that nature. We'll get more business in the system. One of the things that I wanted to bring up, but we didn't have enough time to bring up, was Ready Player One. I think
Mhm.
they actually had a better grip on what was happening in the, I think it's called the Zeitgeist, which is just the
Zeitgeist.
Zeitgeist. There you go. That's just the general public, you know, society thing. I don't know what to call it
Mhm.
other than that, but in talking about how business needs to find that bridge to make customers happy, because it's like I think this industry is like so much easier than some others, just because like if you know anybody who's a gamer, we'll gladly tell you what we want, and if you provide that, we will provide you with the money that we have. There's so many games that people just buy off the name alone. I will probably buy every Halo, even if I stick it in and go, I hate this game and turn it off. I won't sell it back. I'm not one of those kinds of guys. I love that damn game. It just
Mhm.
means so much to me, and I've been saying this ever since we started our podcast. Just like the first thing that came out of my mouth was Halo. It's great. It's awesome. Have you heard of it? So cool. Yeah, I hope that gap gets rectified sooner than later, because clearly, business is busy doing business. Consumers are still consuming. We just hoping and wishing for a better situation, less EA debacles, less pay to win,
Like
more
I
in
said,
depth
I
free to
think we're
use.
moving in the right direction. I think that we're not starting to get away from it fully. I still think it's going to exist for a while, but I think it's going to be less than it was even this year or last year, like a couple years ago. I think it'll start on the decline now because I I think that they are seeing like see, and now it's hard to tell because there are whales, and whales kind of throw everything off. There are people who spend thousands and thousands of dollars on one shitty game, and companies love that shit. So it is hard to say, but I think we'll see less of it. I hope. Fingers crossed.
I think you're right too, because there's enough good publishers out there that are doing it right that they'll just go. I guess we can still make a bunch of money doing it this way.
Right.
Maybe
Yeah.
a little less, but it's not a lot less. People love them some cosmetics for
Yeah.
their
I mean,
shit.
I know for a fact Blizzard makes at least $20 every event because I have a gambling problem. I guess.
I have a collection problem. All right,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like
Exactly.
collecting things. All right.
Yeah. And I know I'm not going to play for a whole lot during the event, but I'm like, but I don't want to be. If I do play, I want to make sure I can dress my Zenyatta up like I like to. So
So let's do
I play the
that.
game like once every 4 months. But I was like, if I don't have this Tracer skin, how will I live? Even though I never play Tracer.
Right, right. So that does it for us. I want to give a thank you to D Live for the upvote for today. It's much appreciated. You guys are awesome as always. You guys are really helping our scene and helping our ability to do what it is we want to do, which is create and move forward
Yeah.
in life. So D
Yeah.
Live, thank you for that. For everybody in
Thanks.
the D Live community, we're
Yeah.
gonna go ahead and let you guys go. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I was gonna say thanks to Smurf on D Live for joining in, as well as the Lolly Queen and Juju Bean over here on Twitch. We appreciate your feedback. Hope to see you back. We'll be here next Tuesday, every Tuesday at around 8 p.m. We have one of these. We don't have a topic yet for next week, but we will keep that updated and keep you posted on it. And you're welcome to join us whenever you'd like.
Goodbye.
Take it easy, everybody.
I should go here.